Welcome back, everyone. I'm Aric from Rare, and today we are back checking out another dragon deck for the post-rotation format. We just took a look at Rayquaza VMAX the other day, and if you guys did miss that, I will have a link on screen for you guys to check that one out when you get a chance as well. But today we're going to be looking at Regidrago, which is going to be a new single prize attacker that we are getting in the new Evolving Skies set. And before we get any further, if you guys can't, remember to crush that like button. It genuinely does help get this video seen by more people on YouTube. And also be sure to subscribe with those notifications turned on. That way you'll be up to date whenever my next Evolving Skies video drops. We're closing in on 25K here on YouTube. We are so close, so make sure to crush that sub button and help us get there. But let's get into today's deck. So up first, we have 4 copies of Regidrago. This is going to be, I think, actually technically the only new card that is in this deck. But yeah, new single prize attacker that we're getting in Evolving Skies. 130 HP, free retreat, no weakness or resistance like the other dragons, but we're really looking at it for this second attack. This is what makes the card so interesting. For 2 grass and fire, it does 240 minus 20 for every damage counter on Regidrago. So even though you can in theory have your damage reduced a good bit, Regidrago has pretty low amount of HP, 130, relative to some of the other Pokemon in the format. So a lot of the times your opponent's just going to be one-shotting you anyways, which basically leaves you to just do 240 every time you want to attack, which is pretty good if you are a single prize attacker. This knocks out, any single prize cards, any 2 prize Pokemon, and of course allows us to 2-shot any VMAXs while only giving up a single prize in the process. Now, of course, the issue with this attack is that it does take 2 grass and a fire energy. Kind of an awkward attack cost, but that's why we are playing Cherrim in this deck to help get this guy set up a little bit easier. So speaking of which, we do have 4 copies of Cherrim in the deck, and also 3 copies of, more importantly, of the new, or not so new, Cherrim that we got back in Battle Styles. Cherrim has this ability very similar actually to Frosmoth, but it allows you to attach any number of grass energy from your hand to your Pokemon any way that you like, as long as they don't have a rule box, meaning that we can throw as many energies as we want on our single prize Pokemon that we have, like Regidrago. So basically we can just, with Cherrim in play, attach 2 grass energies from hand with this ability, and then just attach our fire energy for turn, and we'll have our Regidrago pretty much set up, ready to go and start attacking. But since we are playing Cherrim, we do still have the option of playing a few backup attackers. The first one of which is going to be Tapu Bulu. So this is a card actually came out back when Cherrim did, but this is I think a decent backup attacker for a few reasons, mainly because of this Nature's Judgment attack. For 2 grass and a colorless does 80, and you can discard all energy and do an additional 80 damage. So 160, this with Regidrago is going to allow you to, clean up 2 shots. And also Tapu Bulu does hit a few things in the format for weakness, like Galarian Moltres and the new Umbreon VMAX, I think a little bit more importantly going forward. So this can actually be a good attacker, especially in certain matchups, to take an easy 3 prize KO. And then up from there, our other backup attacker is going to be 1 copy of Kangaskhan for the Rally Back attack. So if any of our Pokemon was knocked out on our opponent's last turn, we do 30 plus 90 more damage, which is really nice. This is only a 2 energy attack cost, which means Kangaskhan is going to be a little bit easier to power up than our other attackers. And also too, even though 120 doesn't seem like a lot, in conjunction with the 240 from Regidrago, that's going to be 360, which pretty much comfortably 2-shots any VMAX in the game. So yeah, Kangaskhan can be a nice, a little bit easier to set up backup attacker to clean up some knockouts with. We also have a copy of Jirachi, the amazing rare one. For the Dreamy Revelation ability, we get to look at the top 2 cards of our deck, keep one, and put the other back on top. This basically gives us a level ball, searchable, consistency boosting Pokemon, and ideally anytime something gets knocked out, we can promote Jirachi in between knockouts, and on our turn be able to see a couple more cards and hopefully be able to keep chaining our attacks with our Regidragos. And our last Pokemon is going to be 1 copy of Crobat V, just to bail us out of a dead hand if we do need to. This basically turns any of our quick balls into, a way to draw some cards. So we don't want to bench Crobat too often, just because it does give up 2 prizes, and we are, by and large a single prize deck trying to force our opponent to take 6 KOs. But nevertheless, sometimes you have a dead hand, and Crobat being able to refill your hand to 6 is, something that is kind of needed on certain turns, unfortunately. But getting into our trainer cards, we have 4 copies of Professor's Research to just discard our hand and draw 7. We also have 3 copies of Marnie as well. So of course, both players shuffle their hands, put them at the bottom of their deck. We get 5 and our opponent gets 4. And then we also have 3 copies of Boss's Orders just to choose what we want to take knockouts on. So all of these look pretty standard up until this point, but we do have a couple of more interesting supporters in this list as well. First of which is going to be 2 copies of Bruno. So Bruno is a card I really do like in these sorts of single prize decks. We shuffle our hand into our deck and draw 4, but if one of our Pokemon was knocked out on our opponent's last turn, we get to draw 7 instead. So that basically means since we are a single prize deck, we have a lot of turns where we can potentially cash in on getting the full 7 card draw off of this. We don't want to run too many of these though, just because you don't really want to see Bruno in the early stages of the game. You more so want it in the mid to late game, you know, once your opponent starts taking knockouts. And a little bit more interesting, we also have 2 copies of Clara. Yes, I am unironically playing Clara. I think this card is actually genuinely pretty decent in this deck. But yeah, so this is a card I think a lot of people have largely written off for decent reasons up until now. But it's basically Ordinary Rod, but you get the cards directly to your hand, and it's a supporter. So we can get 2 Pokemon and 2 basic energy from this card directly into our hand. And even though that seems kind of slow, you know, really, as long as you have 1 energy already in your hand, Clara allows you to grab a Regidrago plus maybe a Fire and Grass energy, and then with Cherrim, you can just slap all of the energy right back down and keep attacking. So again, in most decks, this really isn't that great, but our attackers are like kind of surprisingly low maintenance, and also we do play a lot of 1-ofs in this list as well, so this does allow us to get back those 1-ofs like Crobat, or Jirachi, Kangaskhan, or Tapu Bulu on the turns that we might want them as well. And yeah, by and large, I have been actually liking Clara. I've been very surprised by it. So yeah, feels like a decent inclusion in the deck right now. And for our stadium, we have 2 copies of Training Court as well. This is going to allow us to get an energy back from discard into our hand. So of course, we can get back Grass or Fire energy with this deck. And since every turn we're basically losing 3 energy from our field, we do need some recovery options to ensure that we can keep recycling these attackers over and over. Up next from there, we have 4 copies of Quick Ball, as you would probably expect in a post-rotation deck, but we also have 4 copies of Level Ball as well. So Level Ball not only can search out our Cherrims, but can also get our Cherubi and Jirachi as well. And I like that since with both of the Ball Search cards, we have a consistency boosting Pokemon that we can get with either one. Level Ball allows us to get Jirachi if we need an extra 2 cards, and Quick Ball will allow us to grab Crobat if we want to refill our hand to 6. Next up, we have 2 copies of Energy Search in the deck, so we can search a deck for a basic energy, put it into our hand. Doesn't seem like it's too great, but unfortunately we do need a way at searching out fire energies when we need them. We really don't want to run a high number of fire energies just because we really only need 1 at a time. So Energy Search allows us more outs to fire energies while also still providing additional outs to our grass energies in the process. We also have 2 copies of Ordinary Rod. This is going to be the last of our recovery cards. So of course it's basically the same as Clara, but it's an item and the cards go into your deck instead of directly to your hand. So this will allow us to recycle our attackers and also get back our energy, which is going to be the main resource that we want to be getting back here. We also have 2 copies of Air Balloon just to give our Pokemon 2 less retreat. This is definitely a good card, especially if we can get it down on our Jirachis. That basically ensures that anytime something gets knocked out, we can just promote Jirachi and then freely retreat into our attacker after we've gotten an extra card or 2 with Jirachi. But we also have 2 copies of Scoop Up Net in the deck as well, just for a couple more switching out. But the reason I'm choosing to play Scoop Up Net is because of the -20 modifier on Regidrago's second attack. And what I mean by that is there's actually quite a few decks right now that can exploit ways at reducing Regidrago's damage output. So we have a lot of decks running around with Inteleon, and Inteleon being able to just place damage counters turn after turn, reducing your damage output while maybe allowing your opponent to boss around your attacker could create some awkward scenarios for your Regidrago. We also have things like Shadow Rider Calyrex V that can spread 5 damage counters at a time, maybe knocking out Cherubi and also nerfing your Regidrago's damage in the process. Also think of something like Rapid Strike Urshifu, which can do 120 to your Regidrago, leaving it with 10 HP doing literally 0 damage. So yeah, instead of playing just additional copies of Air Balloon, which I honestly would prefer, if I'm just being honest. For the moment, I am kind of afraid of some of these sniping effects that we have, and I'm going to choose to run the scoop up nets. And for the last trainer card in the deck, we have just one copy of Pokegear 3.0. So this definitely seems like a very random inclusion. This was actually another draw supporter at a different point in this list. So instead of having maybe some turns where I have an additional draw support in my hand, I kind of rather have a Pokegear to give me the flexibility of digging for maybe a boss instead, or maybe a Clara instead. So of course, Pokegear lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, you get a supporter you find there, put it into your hand. So effectively, instead of this being like a 4th Marnie or like a 3rd Bruno, this now kind of acts as both of those, but also kind of like a 5th Research or a 4th Boss or a 3rd Clara. So I think we have enough supports in our deck to guarantee that we hit one off Pokegear whenever we play it, but also this just gives us the extra flexibility to kind of decide which supporter we might want to play in a turn. Up next from there, we have 4 copies of Fire Energy, of course, for our Regidragos. And between Ordinary Rod and Clara and Training Court, we have plenty of ways at recycling these throughout the course of a game to use these on maybe our 5th Regidrago or 6th one if we absolutely do need it. And looking at our Grass Energy, we have 8 copies in total to round out our deck. Alrighty guys, that's going to be my Regidrago list that I am using for the moment. You know, I think Regidrago actually is debatably the best, or at least one of the best new single prize attackers that we're getting in Evolving Skies. Not that there's that many to begin with, unfortunately. I think one of the only things this archetype is going to have to worry about in the early days of this new format is just going to be the amount of sniping effects that we have right now. You know, between Rapid Strike Urshifu, Inteleon, Shadow Rider Calyrex V, there are ways at these multi-prize decks to cheat additional KOs and sort of mitigate your whole single prize advantage that you otherwise would normally have. So that's something you are going to have to watch out for if you are thinking about playing this deck. But if you guys are looking at picking up Regidrago or maybe some other cards from Evolving Skies, you can check out our friends at flipsidegaming.com. We have a coupon code with them, Rare Candy, where you can get 10% off your order. And all of our patrons have their own exclusive discount code for even bigger savings there too. Or alternatively, you guys can check out our friends at tcgplayer.com if Flipside is out of stock of what you're looking for, or maybe you're just a little bit more familiar with TCG Player as a site. I have an affiliate link with them down below in the description you guys can use, and even though there's no discount code attached to it, the way TCG Player works is that they pull prices from all over the web to make sure that you are always getting the cheapest price on any card that you might be looking for. So that's going to wrap up today's video, guys. Be sure to comment down below too. What do you think about this Regidrago deck? Do you think it has potential in the new format? Are there any cards in this list you might change? Let me know what you're thinking about down below. But if you guys did enjoy today's content, of course, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. That way you'll stay up to date whenever my next Evolving Skies video drops. And like I said at the beginning of this video, we are so close to 25K on YouTube. Smash that sub button and help us get there. Or alternatively, you guys can show your support by becoming a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg, or pick up some merch over at rarecandytcg.com. It would mean a lot. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.